analog was always the best. You know, the low end was there, the texture was there, the feeling's almost tangible. Do you know what I mean? As a kind of oxymoron, but it added to the sonic palette more than digital ever did or ever will. I mean, say it ever will. It's catching up, but still, it's sometimes it's almost psychological as well. And I just happen to be from that generation. I came over to the States in the year 2000 with a bag of CDs and a guitar, and I just, you know, came over as a musician. I went to audio school, and I needed 3 jobs essentially to pay my way. One of the jobs I got was at a company called Brent Enterprises. Brent was a genius in the analog design field. He was an engineer as well. But when people were sold this digital revolution, it hadn't really arrived yet, so he was still racking up vintage Neve and vintage API gear. I started there in 2000. I'd never picked up a soldering iron, I'd never read a schematic. And under the tutelage of my good friend Avidis Kafedjian, I learned to be a tech. And initially, like I say, it was just all vintage gear. But as that was running out, you know, brokers wanting, you know, crazy amounts for a 1073, we sourced the parts in England. And when I say in England, that's, you know, the transformers, the wire, even the knobs came from the original mould that Rupert had used. We built the 1073 out of necessity. It wasn't available. It was obsoleted in 1979-80. 7 years later, it became abandoned technology, which means anyone could have built it. It is one product that remains from the Brent days. Everything else it's based on that design. We were ready to introduce new product that Brent was reluctant to do, and so, you know, I said, well, I'd have to go off and set my own company up, which we did. It was called UK Sound. And then at the 11th hour, Brent realised, you know, he didn't have anyone else to continue his legacy, and we did a deal for the name. Initially, it was Brent Averill Enterprises, and then we changed it to BAE Audio, Brent Averill Enterprises. And because of the new designs, I wanted to put my own stamp on it and then call it BAE British Audio Engineering. But the first thing I did was repackage everything in a way that made it more robust, made it more reliable. We encourage people to open the cover and just see how this thing's built, you know what I mean? Because that's always, I mean, there's 2 aspects. One is the cost of things like Carnot transformers, the size of them, and then the labour, you know, entailed in the build of this. We're not about the bottom line per se. I'm a businessman, but I'm a musician and an artist, and I want gear that other people are going to want. If I want it myself, there's going to be a few people that want it. I don't just want to build something to make a few dollars on it, you know what I mean? It's just not where we're at. When you are a tech, it enhances your musicianship to a degree. Once I kind of learned to read a schematic and I learned to understand the signal flow, it helped me in my brain when I was recording. I could picture from A to B, from that chord I strum on my guitar to it going through complete signal path out of my speakers in the end. And that's a wonderful thing, because it's just, I don't know, some people don't care, they just go, that sounds good, that's all I need to know. But if you want to dig into the nitty-gritty of it, and you want to kind of figure out how that Led Zeppelin song sounded the way it did, how that Beatles song sounded the way it did, then it just enhances your enjoyment all the better. The output design that Rupert first did initially was a mistake. Even though it was a mistake, he'd give it to his friends, you know, to listen to sound test it, and it came back and said, no, that's amazing. It was only, I think, years later he realised that, yeah, there was some miscalculations, but it was a happy accident. I mean, you have to ask him, but that's the story I heard. And I think it's kind of romantic in a way, just because, again, some people, you know, want to be perfect, and sometimes perfect's boring. There has to be an alliance between the technical and the artistic. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but again, people say to us, well, what's technically correct for this microphone? You know, what impedance shall we set it on? And we'll ask them what the output of the mic is, and we can tell them technically, okay, this is where it should be, but what does it sound like to your ear? Because, you know, forget technically correct for a minute, what does it sound like? And that's the other thing that's wrong, in my opinion, with the digital world, because a lot of people are listening with their eyes now. They're watching a waveform, you can see it clipping, or, you know, they can see this, that and the other. But go back to your ears, do you know what I mean? It's where it started, and it's where I think the proof's in the pudding, and the pudding's in your ears.